Hey, everybody, it's Anthony, James Hodel, CEO and founder of the Athletic Scholarship Corporation. And today we're covering the track game, track and field and cross country recruiting with UC Riverside coaches, Nathan Browne and Alex Crook. Guys, if you, Coach Browne, if you could start, I know you're since 16, you've been there, right? Is my math right?
Hey, Coach.
So if you could give a rundown, and Alex, same thing. I mean, obviously there's going to be some students and athletes that pursue a career in sports communication or, all the compliance stuff that you guys deal with. If Coach Browne, if you can kick it off, give a little background since 16 at UC Riverside.
Since 16, I've been the head coach at UC Riverside. I've actually been here since 2007. Before I was a head coach, I was a recruiting coordinator all those years. So I managed a lot of the official visits, recruiting for many of the other event areas. And since 16, overall, coach of the program, still coach the sprints and relays group day to day, and certainly am involved in all aspects of recruiting for all of our event areas through all of our assistant coaches as well.
Yeah, so my name is Alex. I'm one of the sports information directors here at UC Riverside. What I like to tell people is basically public relations for college sports. So if you see, anything on UCR track and field Instagram, track and field Twitter, any of the releases that go up, any of the interviews that anybody in the program is doing, just like the one right here, I'm the guy behind all of that.
And this is the first time I've had this, Alex, actually. So that's what threw me off. I thought you were another coach in the call. And, it's important now from compliance and brand, and obviously social media is a huge, huge tool to get enrollment. And, your job is just as important as everybody else's. Mm-hmm. So I appreciate you being on it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So a little background: in 2004, went through a big collapse of a, $100 million company. Got to, at a young age, to decide, money's not everything. What do I want to do to leave an impact? And obviously, Coach, you can attest, economy to scale. Your pay is not the same as Ryan Day at Ohio State that won a national championship in football. So you do this for the love of the sport. I know that for sure without knowing you personally. But I developed this organization to help my own kids when I was coaching high school football. Mm-hmm. And it developed into a business where other high schools came to me and said, "Hey, what are you doing over there? Why do you have 23 guys going on to college?" Well, there's more to just sports, and, there's academics, there's financial aid. There's so many angles and money out there to continue. You may have to borrow some. That's just the way it goes. Like track, it's not like football where it's all or nothing. Coach, you want to touch base on that? Just, the economics of the sport, your recruiting budget, kind of open the door on that.
Yeah, we at UC and UC in general, we're looking at students first. So that goes a long way in our recruiting reach because of the high academic nature. Someone has to be serious about the academic piece first and foremost. So that is a great inroad to how we approach recruiting. It allows us to be able to make sure we've got somebody in front of us that can do UC coursework. But in our sport, everybody's on some sort of a partial. But we always try and partner the aid that's available from UCR, from the state, from Pell Grant. Sometimes there's military aid to make somebody's package a little bit bigger. But it allows for people that are really doing this because they love the sport. They're not here just for the money. And I think there's a purity to it in track and field that's maybe unlike some of the other sports.
Budget-wise, obviously the revenue-generating sports, we call it, football, basketball. How restricted or on a tool standpoint are you empowered to be able to reach out?
In our situation, we try to make our dollars stretch as far as we can. So we look for kids that get some help from other sources just because, the fact of the matter is we're not fully funded, but we still are able to field a very competitive team. We have a competitive roster, a full roster, if you could say it that way. So we are always looking to partner with other sources of funding that can help us stretch somebody's budget a little bit farther. But in our sport, it's a thrill because we kind of play like a mini GM. We kind of get into Madden mode here where we're trying to make all the dollars and cents work. But we're able to do that for the most part.
So obviously name, image, and likeness in football, basketball has completely turned it upside down. I agree with some of it, disagree with a lot of it. You're still handing young men and women that are children still, just because you're 18 doesn't mean you're mentally there to handle the pressures of that type of pay. Have you seen directly in your program any impact with just prospects when they're being recruited asking about what kind of money do you have for me? I've heard some crazy stuff on my side, but on the track side, we've always had the nationals, the Olympics, all that stuff after post-college and, that career. But have you run into on your end any type of experience that you're going, this is changing here too?
Not a ton in track and field. There are some people that certainly have a good following on social media. We have some kids on our team that have some agreements in place, but it hasn't necessarily preempted the recruiting process. It's more so once they get here, they're looking for opportunities. I certainly think it will continue to be a big part of what our prospects are looking at going forward. And we certainly have a administration that is, in a position where they're trying to make us more mobile in that space and making sure kids have opportunities. Our compliance director, AD for compliance, Joshua Smith, is fantastic at conversing with the kids and making sure that they get agreements in place that are compliant, that put them in the best position. So very thankful for the group that we have in place with our leadership that allows our kids to kind of pursue those opportunities as well.
Awesome. So when I got into the other sports arena, so I developed this tech company to market football players, signed contracts with the athletic department of some major high schools across the country, Madison, Washington, Cleveland, St. Ignatius. I mean, big programs that already had a brand, kind of helped us leverage with the coaches in the college community. And I had an AD at our school who was a Division I basketball coach, was our AD at the high school at that time, said, hey, I've got this track girl. We've got a coach that's a Nike Coach of the Year 3 times in a row. I don't understand why she's not being recruited. Can you help? And I said, AD, I'm gonna see what I can do. I'm gonna throw it against the wall and see what sticks. But back then, I remember football. We always talk about upside. What does that student athlete look like in our system, our diet, our training program at the college level? In track, I always felt like you got your flow track, you got your times. Your time is your time, and that's just it. That's what we're dealing with because you're laser focused on the best people for your program. And I had this young lady that, the eye test, the grades, very well spoken. I found out that her mother was withholding her mail and the coach was dyslexic. There was a most unique, hurdles that I had to, no pun intended, had to overcome. And I went, wow, you really need to know specifically that student athlete and the situation to be successful in this process. So I found out that she wasn't getting her offer. She wasn't getting correspondence. She wasn't getting questionnaires. And if you don't fill out questionnaires, that sends a signal to you that I'm not interested, right?
Yeah.
Would you agree?
I agree. I always tell kids you want to put your hand up in the crowd. So in our sport, a lot of coaches only look at times. I think they're doing a disservice to maybe that second tier that's underdeveloped, undercoached, maybe hasn't had a chance to break through at some of the major invitationals across the country. But when you fill out that questionnaire, that lets that coach know at that university, hey, I'm interested. And then it's the coach's job to do their diligence and make sure they vet each prospect that comes over across their email and say, is this somebody I can pursue? Is this somebody that maybe fits the profile of what I've been successful at before? There are those gatekeepers out there, sometimes with parents or sometimes with high school coaches. But sometimes it just takes a little bit more persistence, right? That's part of the recruiting game is we have to be relentless just like the athletes do. But it's helpful for an athlete to stick their hand up and say, hey, I'm looking at you. And because then that allows us to maybe turn our head a little bit more towards them and say, okay, what's over here that might fit? What's the athlete profile looking like? What's the coaching background like? What kind of competitive league are they in? Division are they in? Sometimes people just are underperforming because they're not being pushed every single week. We've had a ton of success over the years with what we call diamonds in the rough, people that maybe flew under the radar. Maybe other programs were overlooking them because they didn't have a stellar mark. But then you start to watch them move. And you mentioned the eye test. That's a big part of track and field because that tells us a lot about what we can improve as coaches and technique and training and weightlifting. Those are all pieces that go into it that allow improvement in their college career. So certainly what you talked about is a big piece where those young athletes can at least fill out that questionnaire. And I tell them, send an email, send a second email, right? Coaches are busy. Now, if you send 2 or 3 emails and the coach doesn't respond, probably not interested. But I always say, and I've always set this as a goal in my program, we're going to respond to 90% of emails because we want to make sure we show that investment in the kid that's reaching out to us. The only time I don't respond, comically speaking, is somebody uses the wrong name or they use the wrong school, because I think they should proofread their email before they send it. But it's led us to a ton of great prospects over the years that filled out a questionnaire that we weren't aware of, that were interested in our program. And by them sticking their hand up, we turned their head, and now we were able to make a connection.
That's one of the things we do in our advisory meetings or just speaking at schools, is telling the kids it's okay to reach out. And if it's your dream school, have that dream, but have a plan B.
Yes.
These coaches are bombarded with social media messages and all these different outlets to communicate, which, Alex knows firsthand. There's static everywhere. And I think, maybe in the revenue generating, it's just out of control, because I don't get a lot of people say, hey, how do I, until they're late in the game, how do I get the attention of a track, coach, or what numbers are they looking for? And it's like, you know what, talk to that coach and see what he's looking for, she's looking for. And this is still a relationship business. I still have to send my children to another adult who's going to be influential in their life.
Yeah. And
I wish parents were more involved in that, maybe not riding you as to my kid's this, or, maybe the Deion Sanders effect. Everybody's, that's the buzz right now. He's a father, it's his son. We forget that. But I think let you coach, but I want to know that my kid's okay. How many out of state kids you have? A lot, right? They're not all from California. So it's a culture change for them. So how do you manage that as a coach? Just the diversity, the different backgrounds. That's challenging in itself, right?
Great question. I mean, you look at the state of California, and 98% of our recruits come from California, but different regions of the state are so different. San Diego is a certain way, LA is a certain way, the Bay Area, Sacramento, the desert. And we have a blended culture here. We have a tremendous amount of diversity on campus in our athletic department, but it creates opportunities for our kids to learn and grow from others. Part of the biggest adjustment is being away from home. You come from a place where you have everything set up for you. Your schedule is kind of in line. You've got a great warm meal. You've got a refrigerator that's stocked. And now you got to come to a place where you've got to hit the dormitory and the res halls and the food there, or you've got to prepare it. So the biggest adjustment is life management. And we try and do a lot of coaching in that regard, try to make sure we connect our young people with a mentor, unofficial mentor on our campus, because they went through it already and they can help them kind of navigate that. But California in and of itself is so different in different places, and we have people from all over this state. But it really does create a tremendous family environment where we can grow and learn from each other, not without its challenges. But one of the mantras in our athletic department is we're going to keep chopping. We're going to keep trying. We're going to keep plugging. We're going to keep moving at a goal or an objective. And our kids have kind of taken that on, and they're more than willing to assist and roll up their sleeves to help their teammates that are coming in first year and adjusting to it. But being away from mom and dad is a big piece of the puzzle. And the quicker we can get them self-actualized, realizing they can handle their life on their own, then success in our sport is right around the corner.
How important is social media account activity review of a student athlete for you and your staff?
More so than ever. It's a big piece. It gives us a snapshot to who they are, where their background is, what their family values might be. Is it all about them? You ever see them post, teammates? We want to see a presence. We don't want to see 30,000 posts, but I definitely want to see that their sport is important to them. Some kids will have two separate accounts, and I think there's nothing wrong with that. That allows them to showcase their athletic piece and their personal piece and realize that they're two separate people in that regard. Some people will blend it. That's fine too. I just like to see a positive presence that shows that they are dedicated to their sport, that they're serious about training, serious about competition, because then that's going to bleed over well into the college realm.
Yeah, and that's something we've been preaching for a long time, since basically the beginning of the organization, because social media was, relevant back then. I think it's back in MySpace days, and we had celebrities in, and we're talking about, how important is it? And I've had kids lose deals where coaches are just like, we just can't be involved.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't get charged with a crime. It's like, no, we have a brand. And it goes back to even when I played in high school in the 90s, our coach was, the name on the back is nothing. This is our brand. This is our community that you're carrying it. And it resonated. And obviously as we mature into adults and fathers or coaches ourselves, it's more relevant than ever. It's like before you put it out there, think about it, because it's basically like yelling it to the world, and then you can't take it back. Even though you delete it and you try, it gets index spidered something, especially if you're a big recruit. People are looking, they don't like success. Not everybody likes success, right?
Yeah.
What is your best advice from a training, diet, and preparation through this process for, the cross country or the track and field student athlete?
I think the easiest thing is trying to develop consistency, meaning making sure you're eating breakfast every day. If you can stay on a consistent schedule when it comes to sleep, that is what's going to allow the body to adapt to workouts, to races, and put you in the best position physically to perform when it matters the most. There are a lot of kids that think they can burn the candle at both ends and stay up all hours of the night. That's not going to fold over and copy into track and field or into athletics in college. You've got to have some discipline there. Being consistent about your pregame meals and making sure that you're fueling throughout the day. Our sport is different from other sports in that a track meet can last all day. You could have 2 or 3 events spread 4, 5, 6 hours apart. You have to fuel. You have to make sure you have a protein drink or a protein bar or some sort of nutritional bar or piece of fruit that allows to make up for the gaps in your day in terms of meals. Other sports, the meets or the game starts, it's over in 2 hours. So you can it's more predictable in that regard. But I would say for track and field athletes, develop consistency in your life management, meaning nutrition, hydration, and sleep. And those are the 3 areas that will make or break your career, in my opinion.
You're 100% right, because now you just brought me back to when indoors, and I was a football player primarily, and then did shot disc, and they put me in the fat man race, the 4x4 last leg, and I actually as a fullback did really well. So they're like, you know what, let's keep them. So I can handle 1 lap, I guess, coach. But I remember throwing indoors at winter and going, I'm starving because we're still in it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't prepare. And all of a sudden you're just starting to eat garbage. What happens? Your sugar spikes, you're drinking caffeine, trying to curb it, and you're trying to cheat the system. And it doesn't lie to you. It tells you when your quads are locking up that I can't finish because I haven't fed. I mean, it's exhaustive, right? It's intense. It's all day mentally. And I remember it when you said that, I was like, you know what, you're 100% right.
Yeah.
And some of the simplest things people overlook, like they expect you to have some pixie dust genius answer that's going to fix it for everybody. And what you said was simple, but is very, very important, because that plays into your mental health too. Mental preparation, your diet, just all that. You need that to compete. What about the high school coaches and just interacting with your department? What's the best practices for them?
I think it's important that when we see them at meets, if they see us, come up and introduce yourself. Let us know who you are. Let us know that, hey, I've got some juniors, I've got some seniors, I got some sophomores coming on. We want to build those relationships. We want them to know who we are. We want to know who they are, because I believe the relationships you build can turn into your own recruiting pipeline. You don't have to restart every year figuring out which prospects you're looking at. If you have a relationship with 10, 12, 15 really good high school coaches, they're going to call you. I've been in this business long enough to where now I have coaches that reach out to me even before I know about their top prospects, because they respect the program. They see the way we develop athletes. And most importantly, we graduate athletes. That's the biggest piece. They want to know that when they send somebody to your program, you're going to see them all the way through. And those referrals are just a lifeblood, because I can only cover so much ground. I can only hit so many Instagram accounts. I can only look at so many performance lists. But when I know I've got a coach that's reaching out to me directly, then that's it doesn't have to be a cold contact, right? That's a referral that I've got an inside with that can help me connect with that person a lot faster. And we can talk about maybe other athletes that have been a part of the program from that high school or from that league. And now we've got a great connection that we can start from to see if it's the right fit for our program.
I appreciate your guys' time greatly. I know it's a topic that I cover often, and I feel like, how are we going to craft this, or how are we going to talk about this? But I think for it's kind of the same no matter what the sport is, that process. But I appreciate your feedback in your position as in track and field and cross country. Alex, do you have any feedback or any commentary? I didn't want to leave you out of this one. I know you're in the background, but
No, you guys are good. No, I think that was phenomenal. I think Nate touched on a lot of really good points that we value here at UCR, and track and field is definitely, when you were talking about the purity of the sport,
Yeah.
Yep.
I think that's definitely something that we value here at UCR in terms of graduating our people, making sure we bring in quality people. And I think this program, today, past, future, is a fantastic embodiment of that.
I appreciate it. Coach, in,
Mm.
in closing, if a student athlete, parent, or high school coach wants to get in touch with your university and your team, what are the best email if you want to give it? I know it's on the site. They want to
Oh,
go to
yeah.
the site, fill out a questionnaire. That's the advice I give. I think that's the best practice to get into your system, because we all have a system, relationship management system. But what are the socials, or how would you like people to reach out?
Yeah, and what's fantastic about Alex is he is managing all of our social accounts. So our messaging is unified. He does a tremendous job pushing out content consistently on Instagram and X. Well, I was about to say Twitter, but X. So UC Riverside Track XC is our Instagram handle on X or Twitter. We've got UCR_track field on there. And then certainly on our Go Highlanders website, there's a link on there for recruits to be able to access our questionnaire. But really grateful that Alex has taken over that, because it allows our messaging to be so clean, so simple, on message. Branding is so important to this department, and he does a fantastic job at keeping us up to date.
I mean, he is the man, because he set this up and then I had to move it, and he was filling out the ticket. He's on the call, and
Yep.
I've been on some, big program calls, and they never had anybody helping him. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
he's on point. So, kudos to him for it, and keep things flowing. And again, congratulations, you guys. Keep it going. You've been there a good amount of time now, so it seems like your furniture there. And hopefully we'll get some good prospects and push them your way. And I know you're, California, there's some economic issues in state
Sure.
and things like that, but we'll send it out, if it matches, and we can check some boxes, because we can't check them all.
Yeah.
And, I appreciate your time greatly. We really do.
Thanks for having us, Anthony. We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Anthony. Appreciate it, man.
College sports is a big business, a multi-billion-dollar business. So how do high school athletes get noticed by college coaches? At Athletic Scholarship Corporation, we provide nationwide recruiting services and get scholarship offers for our clients.